If I was a politician and I wanted to continue this system for me to benefit, then I would continue this system of giving them shit education where they can't think for themselves and they always need the government to come in and bust their asses.
I doubt that politicians are that, smart or that intentional in doing so.
If I was a politician.
You were. Okay. You're a politician. Makes sense. Because
careful,
a lot
guys.
of people thought, that's what happens in our education. They thought the politicians intentionally make the education bad, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think they intentionally make. It's just that it's very difficult to build a good education.
Because again, if people maintain a system of bad education, it's gonna be counterintuitive towards nation building. Last time, when was the last time you were in high school? Actually,
it's 12 years ago.
12 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, 12 years ago, 6 years ago, I was in high school. 6 years ago. Maybe 7 years ago. I can't count.
Okay.
I'm a byproduct of Indonesian education.
You did.
I'm a byproduct.
You didn't just do that. Okay.
I am a byproduct of Indonesian education. My math is absolutely terrible. I've invited you here today.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, this is Cania Citta.
Usually people pronounce it Cania.
Oh,
It's okay. No problem.
I feel like a schmuck right now. I am so sorry. You know, one of the biggest things I like to do, it's a bad habit of mine to like mispronounce people's names for some reason. Like I always can't get people's names right. Like you say, people pronounce it Cania, right?
Yeah.
So I say Chanya.
Yeah, but it's okay
because
too.
it's a C.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's actually inconsistent. But it's my mom's prerogative, right? So
Oh,
I let her.
okay,
It's
okay,
Cania Citta.
Okay,
So the middle
Cania
name
Citta.
pronounced with C. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's why when I pronounce you, when I tell your name, when I say your name to people, they don't recognize you. They're Cania.
Yeah.
Damn.
Because they pronounce it Cania. Yeah.
Yeah, I am so sorry.
No, that's totally fine.
So
That's
this is
it.
Cania Citta. She is
Yeah,
one of the most legendary millennials here in Indonesia.
No.
Pushes critical thinking. I watched you a lot back when I was in university.
Really?
Yeah.
Where did you go to?
I go to the one in Sleepy, Binus University.
I see.
Yes, people say UI rejects go there. So
But that's just a joke, right?
What?
That's just a joke.
I hope so. So yeah, thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you so
and
much for
sitting
having
down.
me.
Yeah, I watched you a lot back when I was in university. I watched your episode
Thank
in
you.
ILC,
Oh, okay.
ELC.
On TV, right?
Yeah.
On national television. Oh, my
You're
God.
in national television,
Oh.
and you said
Man,
something.
it's like my first time ever
Hot
on national
take.
television. Yeah.
Hot take. You said. I remember what you said there.
Okay. What was
Sila
it?
pertama is also to protect people that don't believe in God, because it's a
Yeah.
faith.
Yeah.
People that don't believe in religion and God, it's a faith. It's also a faith, right?
Yeah.
So it needs to be protected. So I was like, holy damn, she makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I would say you're one of the, your profound influence on how I view religion in the matters of the state.
Okay.
Not personally, right? But in matters of the state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think I need to also clarify a bit there.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
sure,
like
sure.
it's not that because it's a faith,
Yeah.
but it's more like it's because the belief in God or religion is a faith. So it's it's something that you can choose to take or not to take.
Yes,
right?
it's a choice.
I think that because the law protects your right to believe in it.
Yes.
That means it also protects the right not
to
to
not
believe
to
in
believe
it.
it,
Right?
yes,
Yeah,
because
it's
not
a
to
right.
believe. Would you say
Yeah.
like not believing in something is also a belief itself?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think so.
Or you don't think so?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think if you don't believe in something, it's a non-belief. Like it's a state of not believing.
Oh,
it's
okay,
not a state
okay,
of
okay.
believing.
I see.
Yeah.
Again, it's just a choice of what you are confident something exists and doesn't exist. That's it.
I think it's just a state of whether you agree with a certain way of seeing
I
things
see, I
or
see.
not. Yeah.
Okay.
But if you make it, if you think that people should not be able to not believe, then it becomes not a right anymore, right? It becomes an obligation. It becomes mandatory. Then
it
for
becomes
people to
mandatory.
believe in something,
Yeah.
I think that's what I say. But obviously, the debate went off track.
Yeah.
Like, what was it?
I watched the entire
yeah, because the conversation was actually about a judicial review, right?
Yes, judicial review, and you did that hot take, and I was like, damn, that's right. That's what we got.
Did your friends also watched it, or talked about it a bit?
A lot of my friends used to. I actually found out about you on social media through my friends.
Oh.
And they were like, this woman right here. She talks a lot of sense about our beliefs in religion and our option not to believe in anything in Indonesia. And to a lot of us kids back in the days, I think I was like 18, 19 at the point. I'm pretty sure you were 25.
No, maybe, I wasn't.
Sorry, you're
23. 22.
22, yes.
Yeah.
22, damn, in ILC. So anyways.
Yeah, I was 22 at the time, guys.
Start early in the career.
And that was my first time on TV.
How did it felt though?
Actually, at the time, I wasn't the person I am today. So the difference is that I didn't really get social cues or social connections. So it didn't really feel like anything. I mean, to me at the time, because
same thing. I also have that problem as well. I actually think I'm a sociopath. Honestly, yeah. So like. Whenever, I think that's the reason why I'm in politics.
Okay.
Because I pretend to get social cues and just like schmucks. They like this when I say this to them. This is what I get to say to them. Okay. So I think that's why I'm in politics. That's why I'm buzzer. Because I like to feed this to people. So yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but I think there's a difference there, and I guess like I can sympathize with social cues, because a lot of people that likes to, immerse themselves in more abstract ideas. We tend to invest a lot of time in thinking about the world and its concepts rather than the people around us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I wouldn't say that's an issue, but hey, I mean, everybody has their own development arc.
Yeah, right? For sure.
Yeah. Anyways, we wanted to talk about critical thinking, right?
Okay.
Because critical thinking is a label that has been slapped on your name for like the longest time at this point.
Okay.
Yes. And I really admire what you're doing here in Indonesia, which is to instigate an alternative viewpoint in how to think. We should think rationally, we should think critically, and not a lot of Indonesians can think rationally and critically because the education keeps educating us to memorize theories. And we're not allowed to question anything. It's a dogma. So we got to believe those things exist. I mean, there's no practical application towards it. But there's some people who seems to detract from what you're doing, right? And some people, I would say not a huge amount of people, but I would say a small amount of people on Twitter, they say what you're doing is scientism, right? And if I'm not mistaken, the definition of scientism is when you prioritize science as the absolute truth, right? And you forgo philosophical and even religious viewpoints in order to reach that truth, right? And I think it's an interesting topic to explore because I really don't agree with that rationality, but I want to hear it more from you. So
sure.
What do you say towards people who says that what you're doing is basically scientism and it's not promoting critical thinking?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure the definition of the scientism itself, is universally accepted, but let's just use the definition that you
What is your
mentioned,
definition
right?
of scientism?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
That's my point, because
Right.
I don't use this term and I'm not really sure what this term refers to, but maybe it's about the belief that scientific truth is the absolute truth. Maybe that is. If that's the case, then that's definitely not my stance. Would you call our court or judicial system is practicing scientism?
Oh, that's a very heavy question.
Yeah, because when you're accusing someone of killing, you need to provide evidence, and it's the only way for the court to accept your truth. If you don't provide evidence, the court would say, we doubt it. Would you call it scientism?
I honestly wouldn't call it scientism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's basically my stance. What I don't get is, like, do you want your governor to wake up one day and say, hey, I want to build this dam? Why? I had a dream that it works. It works for the flood. It works for the climate change. Wouldn't you call out upon that governor and ask for, more math of some sort of proof or some sort of evidence that it can work?
Yes.
You would rely upon his dream, his or her dream, right?
Yes, because it's a matter of speculation.
It's a matter of speculation, and people have been asking the government to provide them with evidence, to provide them with some sort of reasoning before they reach some sort of conclusions or some sort of policies. So what I'm asking is, why are we doing that to the government? Why do we demand evidence or explanation, some sort of basis or grounds for doing something or making a certain policy, like the vasectomy policy that we debated, a few days ago, or for the past 2 weeks probably. People have been debating about it.
Yeah.
Why are we doing that to our government? Like, why are we demanding explanations, evidence, some grounds for reaching a conclusion? Isn't it because we think that it's the best way to form a good policy? Isn't it because of it?
Yeah, because we want to guarantee that this policy doesn't sacrifice a lot of things.
Doesn't sacrifice a lot of things, doesn't impact us in a bad way.
It doesn't impact us in a
right?
bad way. Yeah.
And it gives us the outcomes that we want to achieve, right? We want to achieve. So what I'm asking is that if we want this to be the ground for policy making, for judicial system, because we think it's the best way to achieve a good outcomes, so why is it that we want a good policy made to our city and our country and our court, but not to our life? Like, what I'm trying to say is as simple as, I think this is what works. This is what we know is working right now. We're not saying it's the perfect thing, it's the ideal thing. We don't know if the ideal thing exists. But we know that it works so far. We know that it provides us with the best outcome possible.
Yes.
So far.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is that we implement this in policy making. We implement this in the courts, in the court system, in the judicial system. I just suggest that maybe it's good to be implemented in our life as well. All right?
Yeah. What do you think the current government, what sort of thinking framework does the government use now if it's not critical thinking? Do you think it's not?
I'm sorry, but the scientism discussion, I think, wasn't about critical thinking. I think it's more about scientific thinking.
It's about scientific thinking,
yeah.
But right now it's scientism and critical thinking, right?
Okay.
And I wanted to make sure that both sides also gets a fair amount of exposure as well, right? So what do you think is the kind of thinking that the government is doing to do their policies right now?
It's very difficult to put a label upon the government, because the government consists of many different parties, different people, and different policymakers as well. So generally, I can't really say how they're thinking, because
it's pretty difficult to have a one shoe fits all kind of thing.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, let's go back to scientism, okay?
Okay.
So some critics say that in our enthusiasm for science, we dismiss the value of philosophy, humanities, religion, culture, and indigenous knowledge.
Okay.
And what do you have to say towards that?
Okay. I've been talking a lot about domains,
Yes.
domains of knowledge. I kept telling people that not all conversations or debates or premises are in the domain of science. Actually, like when I say to people that we get to ask for evidence or some sort of some ways to prove things before concluding that it's true, I was talking about a statement or a premise that discusses reality. It can't be used for a premise that discusses values. Like when you're asking me, Cania, is it better to tax rich people or not tax them? You cannot answer it using science or scientific thinking.
Yes.
You answer it using philosophy.
Yeah.
You can only answer it using philosophy. You cannot answer it using scientific method. What to prove there? There's nothing to prove. It's just a matter of values. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer people to just, compete in the free competition kind of atmosphere, and you just let rich people to take as much as they can? Or you want it to be redistributed back to the rest who don't get as much? It's not a question that science can answer or scientific thinking can answer. So when you're saying that because you're promoting scientific thinking, that means you're dismissing philosophy or other ways of thinking, it just doesn't make sense, because not all the kind of things that we need to think of can be thought through scientific thinking.
I do.
You're gonna need more thinking tools to process these things, and that's what I've been also promoting to people. How do you form morality? I have my own ways of doing it. I said I'm gonna opt for a model or a system that works for optimal well-being of the people. Which means I'm gonna ask for, if you're making a policy, I'm gonna ask who's gonna benefit from it, what kind of benefit they'll get from it, and who's gonna be impacted in a negative way, who's gonna get harmed by it, because this is always a trade-off, right? Policy can't be ideal for everyone.
Yeah.
So there will be parties who get more of a negative effects, but there will be parties that get positive effects.
There's just winners and losers in policy and politics.
We need to morally calculate that. Why do we sacrifice motorcyclists instead of the car drivers, for example? Why do we sacrifice pedestrians more, or why do we sacrifice car drivers more?
Yeah, why does Tesla seem to sacrifice pedestrians rather than whoever's driving the car?
Right.
A moral dilemma.
Ages, and that can't be answered using scientific thinking. And I always say that to people. Science is very limited, and it has very clear boundaries, what it can answer to.
Yeah.
And about the things that beyond what we can observe, right?
Yeah.
People have been asking me then can you accept that there are truths outside the observable universe? I cannot accept that it's true because I don't know if it's true. Because
you don't know it's true. You only work in the realm of what you know.
Yeah, in the realm that is observable.
Yes, that is observable.
Observe, that I can be responsible for. Okay, this is how I know it's true, right? I can explain the method. I can explain how I prove it. I can explain how I test it or experiment it, etc. But outside the observable realm or universe, I would say I don't know. I have no knowledge of it.
We have no knowledge of it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's very difficult for me to take action based on something I don't know and I can't be responsible for. For example, I'm a driver of a car, and then you're my passenger.
Yes.
And then I hit something, and then I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I hit something because of this thing that is not observable, that is outside our universe, telling me to hit it."
Okay.
Can I do that? Is it a responsible thing to do?
It's not a responsible thing to do, yeah.
See?
Yeah.
I can't be responsible for something that I don't know, and I just say it's there.
Okay.
I think it's very irresponsible of me to do.
If that's the case, do you believe in extraterrestrial life?
See,
Aliens?
that's the point. I don't believe, right?
You don't believe in aliens?
No, it's not that I don't believe in aliens. I don't do believe. It's more like if I know this much, let's say 80% of it probably is true, or
I see.
70% of it probably is true. But I cannot say I just believe it's true, right? I mean, I don't know, right?
Yes.
So for the extraterrestrial life, I think
it's possible.
Probable?
It's
no,
probable.
It's probable. I think it's very probable that it exists. I think.
You think, okay.
Yeah, but again, I don't know. I mean, I still don't know. It
I
exists.
I see.
Yeah.
So it's probable because here in Earth, you know, a life form has managed to grow up.
To grow, yeah.
So in
other planets,
other
galaxies,
planets and other galaxies and other places.
Yeah.
If the conditions are right, it could also grow as well, right?
Grow. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we can work with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm open for the possibility.
Yeah. What happens like one day, aliens come to Indonesia? Like, would that shatter like a lot of your world belief?
No.
No.
I mean, how does it shatter it?
Would that expand your belief?
Yeah, it's just another day where you found. When you discover, new knowledge, right? For me, it would be just like that. I mean,
I see.
I never form a conclusion on something that I don't know. So people have been asking me also about ghosts, right? Like, Cania, what if one day there's actually a ghost that can be observable?
Have you seen any ghosts though?
No. But supernatural experiences. Have you haven't? I haven't.
You haven't. Okay.
Or I don't know.
Or maybe you had, but you're like, that's not supernatural. Like maybe you don't realize.
Yeah, maybe I didn't realize, or maybe I was too skeptical of it.
Too skeptical.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But again, I never made any conclusion about it, right? I mean, I never say that it doesn't exist or it's false or whatever. So I'm saying I don't know. That's always what I say. I don't know. People have been telling stories about it, but there are a lot of loopholes in the stories, and then there are a lot of ways to hypothesize it, hypothesize different paths of seeing it, like when people told stories about, they hear something, doesn't, and then you can always ask like, are you sure? Yeah, or are you sure it's a unique voice? Maybe it's just a typical, natural voice, like probably it's the sound of the trees, the leaves hanging or whatever.
It's a huge coincidence that a lot of people in Indonesia have experienced supernatural experiences, but we're also the country with a huge amount of schizophrenics. So
okay, I wouldn't be comfortable to make that correlation yet, but yeah,
it's
maybe
it's a coincidence that let's just say it's a coincidence that we have a huge amount of schizophrenics inside Indonesia.
Yeah, so when people ask me like, what would it shatter my worldview, right? If I see a ghost that is real, I was like, how does it shatter my worldview? My worldview is, I conclude something is true if there's a valid ground of evidence and reasoning to think it's true. That's my whole worldview. Is like, so if there's a ghost and then that's it, that's observable. We have the evidence for it. We can even work with it and probably use it for energy fuel.
Let's take this conversation up to the galaxy for a bit.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
If you meet aliens.
Okay.
If Cania meets aliens, guys.
Yeah.
If Cania meets aliens, what's the first thing you want to learn about them?
Well, I think how their everyday life so far.
Their everyday life so far.
Yeah, like. Yeah, how are they doing their everyday thing? Like, how do they get their nutrition, or do they even need nutrition? And fuel for their technology. Do you develop technology, and how do you fuel them with?
If aliens come to Earth, right? If I meet them, the first thing I want to ask them is, "Why are you here for?"
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
For me, because I don't know. My mind works in a frame where I need to know if this person is hostile or friendly.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So if they're here and they're like, we need fuel, shit, we gotta shoot this guy. We gotta get him out.
I just thought for this question, I think it would be made obvious, because if they're hostile, they already do something, right?
Yeah.
I don't have the chance to ask it.
Yeah.
They would have already shot me or something.
Or maybe they could just ask us like if we have fuel.
Yeah.
If we tell them we have fuel, they're like, okay, they shoot us, and we wouldn't have a chance to ask anything else. Yeah. Yeah. So back to the realm of Earth, right?
Okay,
and we're back into in the discussion of the mind about scientism and all of that, right?
Yeah.
Do you agree with the premise that a lot of Indonesians just take education for granted? Like they receive something and then they don't ask it. They don't ask about it.
Okay.
They don't understand it. They memorize it. They believe in that concept.
Yeah.
They think that works. What works for him, what works before would also work for me as well. Would you think in your quest to promote critical thinking, it could actually become, in a way, wait. Let me check if I'm right with this question. Do you think Indonesia risks falling into scientism if you promote critical thinking into people whose basic building blocks? Are dogmatic.
Yeah.
They're dogmatic.
So when you teach science to dogmatic people, it will turn into scientism.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That's what I've been talking about as well everywhere, because people kept telling me, okay, I said we need more science education, right? That's what I said.
We need more investment in STEM.
Probably that's another topic.
Oh yeah,
because STEM investment in STEM probably more like it's related to also industry, interest and everything. But it's more like it's the very basic thing about our basic education, right? What we're teaching to our kids in the basic education in schools, right? In elementary school until high school, the K-12. People have been challenging my view because I said we need to teach science more, right? We need to have more science education in our K-12. But people have been challenging me by giving me examples where people with scientific education actually have dogmatic views, violent views even. That's what they're telling me, right? This is where I don't know. I'm not comfortable to mention because it's not for me, because it's coming from these people who are challenging me. I don't know what they've been observing.
Okay.
But that's what they mentioned. They said that science education don't help people getting out of worldview that is harmful. That's what they said, right? Worldview that is close-minded. That's what they said. And then I told them that no, what they're doing is not science education. What they're getting in schools and even in universities, that's not science education. That's probably scientism education.
Why do you think so?
Yeah, because they're not being taught to think scientifically. They're being taught these are the scientific knowledges. This is the knowledge from the physics, from the chemistry, from the biology. And you just take it as true and you just apply it. So they're not even thinking. There's no thinking process actually.
Why is this true?
Why is this true? How did we get to these truths? And why do we apply it here? There's no even why question involved. It's just it's a machine kind of, it's a procedural thinking. That's what I said. Like you have a formula, you memorize it, you implement it somewhere, you use it for probably building cars. So yeah, you can build cars, you can build airplanes, you can build rockets using this way of thinking, but obviously you're not being a person that is open-minded, curious, and all those things that we wish to cultivate when we teach people science education, because that's not science education. I wouldn't call it science education.
I see.
Yeah.
So you're also like spreading besides spreading the premise, you're also trying to change people's fundamentals in that they need to stop being dogmatic in order to reach critical thinking first.
Yeah.
Because some people in Indonesia, I notice, their fundamentals is that they're always dogmatic, right?
Yeah.
So when they are presented with the concept of critical thinking, that you can question this, question that, for them, it feels like for some of these people, they feel like they're on top of the world, right? Because they completely believe that they're true, and that even what they believe is true cannot be questioned because it's critical, you know. Like you get what I mean, right? They process it with critical thinking. They believe this is true, but when you believe in something without recognizing its flaws, then you're dogmatic.
Yeah.
That's what Indonesia lacks. And
they're doing it in politics too. They're doing it everywhere.
In politics too, yeah. I do agree. But in politics, though, I would like to say that politicians, we like to take advantage of
Mr.
the people's dogmatic views, you know.
Yeah.
We feed them stuff that we know they're not going to question.
That makes sense.
And it's easier to get electoral votes because these people are not going to question us.
Yeah.
So, in a way, if I was a politician and I wanted to continue this system for me to benefit, then I would continue this system of giving them shit education where they can't think for themselves and they always need the government to come in and bust their asses. But anyways.
Yeah, but
I
doubt that politicians are that, you know, smart or that intentional in doing so.
If I was a politician.
You were. Okay. So you were a politician. Makes sense. Because a lot of people thought that's what happens in our education. They thought the politicians intentionally make the education bad, but I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think they intentionally make it. It's just that it's very difficult to build a good education.
Because again, if people maintain a system of bad education, it's going to be counterintuitive towards nation building, right? Because we're already in the course of somewhat questionable education. People that join science class, they end up not wanting to be engineers or scientists. No, maunya masuk akmil, akpol, iya kan? Because the conditions for you to go to Semarang and Magelang in the first place is for you to be part of the science class. So people who actually want to do science but they can't get into science class, they end up going to social class. And people who want to go to who want to join the military, the police force, they need to go through science class first. Now, I don't know if this system is still upheld, but last time I was in high school was like 6 years ago. Yeah, I don't know if it's changed. Last time, when was the last time you were in high school, actually?
It's 12 years ago.
12 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, 12 years ago, 6 years ago, I was in high school. 6 years ago? Maybe 7 years ago. I can't count.
Okay.
I'm a byproduct of Indonesian education.
You did.
I'm a byproduct.
You didn't just do that. Okay.
I am a byproduct of Indonesian education. Yeah. My math is absolutely terrible. But anyways. Yeah, so...
Yeah, but the problem you mentioned is already like on the top layer of the problem. Like the root problem is the science education itself. Like it doesn't matter how many people go into science classes or science schools if we don't have the science education there. Yes. So we're still not nurturing the scientific minds yet. You know?
What kind of curriculum? Say if you're the Minister of Education. Hopefully. What kind of education?
Yeah.
What kind of curriculum would you like to give to the students of Indonesia?
Yeah, typically it consists of 3 major domains. Mm-hmm. The scientific worldview, rational decision making, rational thinking and decision making, and empathy or human understanding. So I would just focus on these 3.
On those 3 aspects.
And then build a very very good enforcement of competence. So you make assessments, lots of national standardized assessments that people can take regularly. People don't just be judged through one-time examination, but you can take like TOEFL or IELTS. You can take it, throughout the years. You can always take the assessment throughout the years to know whether you've already achieved the competence level that we want to achieve. So we have that enforcement intact. We probably need, I think we need to separate the teaching institution from the assessing institution, because it doesn't make sense for me to teach my students and assess it myself, because it would be, when you're a chef and you're cooking, you shouldn't be the judge of your,
of course,
course,
somebody
right?
else should be the judge. You're going to be biased.
You're going to be biased, exactly.
Yes.
So if I'm the teacher and I teach these kids to drive, for example, and I'm the one who also, make the test whether they can drive, but what if I'm also a bad driver?
Yeah.
I would create bad tests.
Yes.
And consequently, they're gonna be bad alumni.
Not only that, like some teachers, no offense to some teachers, like students, there are some students that are like evidently, visibly terrible, but the teachers just pass them anyway because of a matter of pride.
Exactly.
Yes, because like if I can't get past this one student, then in some ways my credibility as a teacher will inflict damage on my credibility as a teacher.
Exactly.
And so they have to pass the student anyway.
Exactly. If I'm the one who,
they call it mercy. So, what do you think of that?
Exactly. That's so I get that it comes from good intention, right? And it's also coming from the flaw of the system, because we just put all the externalities on the individual teachers. That we cannot do anymore. If we want to have a good system, we need to take the externalities to the system. For example, if there are students who can't pass because they haven't reached the level of competence or mastery that we want to achieve, then where are they going? Right? We should not unleash this burden to the teachers, because they don't have the resources to take care of it. Right?
Sometimes some teachers are not even capable.
And they've also probably have overworked as well.
Overworked,
underpaid.
Imagine we're like the 4th biggest country in the world. Our schools have 40 students inside a single classroom.
Yeah.
I was in Australia.
Yeah.
I was raised in Gam, ini yang bagian sini sensor aja. Yang bagian gua barusan dibesarin di mana gitu. Sorry. But anyways, I was raised abroad. And I remember that a class consists of 21 students to 20 students.
Yeah.
21, 22 students.
20 is still good.
20 is good.
Yeah.
Why? Because that way the teachers could follow up on the students. They will not be overwhelmed by the amount or the quantity of the students.
Yeah.
They can track each of the students' development and progress. And one teacher usually can teach all the subjects.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they can usually teach the basic of all the subjects. Yeah. That way, they have more control of the students. But because the system down there is manageable, it allows them to be accountable to the system as well. Like students that don't pass an indication means that they're bad. Student that passes this means that they're good. They have to fall back to the system, right? But here in Indonesia, conditions on the field is just so overbearing. One teacher could do 40 students.
50 students.
50
when I was in
students.
elementary school, there were classes with 50
50
students.
students.
And imagine if half of them,
bro.
like if half of them couldn't pass the standard because they're not there yet. They need to learn more. No one can take care of it because all the teachers' hands are full. That's why I wouldn't blame the teachers.
I don't blame the teachers as well. Like they specialize in, usually teachers here in Indonesia, they specialize on one field, right? On one study. And then they have to teach in different classes for that too. So not only will they have, they're a homeroom teacher for 40 students, they're also a teacher for potentially 200 students. And that is just, that is just overwhelming. For one person.
So I would try to work on that. If I'm the minister, then I would really focus on how to take some of the burdens out from the teachers' hands. So they can manage it better.
Yeah.
Like for example, obviously we can always utilize online platforms, like the edtech. We have lots of edtechs in Indonesia. I'm working in one as well. I'm producing contents. I'm teaching at Zenius. But there are also, other people like my friend Iman Usman with Ruang Guru, or Mbak Ella with Sekolahmu, and lots of good edtechs actually in Indonesia. I think even the point that they're building it is because of it. It's because we have 50 million students. We can't produce like qualified 10 million teachers, in one generation or in 1 year. That's gonna take time.
It takes decades.
Yeah, so we need to have a shortcut where we combine the offline resources and the online resources to produce the good education that we're trying to build, So that's true. We cannot keep adding burdens to our teachers. They're already overworked, they're already underpaid enough, We need to even work on their welfare as well, their financial incentive. And in the meantime, we still have students that keep coming to schools that we need to take care of. So we don't have days off where we can pause it and okay, let me work on the teacher's quality first, and then let me work on the teacher's welfare first. No, we don't have that luxury. Kids keep coming, every year, and we just keep adding the burdens to the teachers unless we're changing the system. So I'm gonna change the whole thing, if I'm the minister, because I can't just keep making curriculums and new ways of doing things without changing that part, without changing how are the resources being managed. So I think for the past decades or so, what we were doing is that we changed the curriculum, we changed the textbooks, we changed, how teachers should do things, but we don't help the teachers. We just keep adding burdens to the teachers while knowing full well that it's not doable. Because of course they're human beings. They have limitations. They have limitations, and we're not helping them, taking care of their limitations. So we just expect them to work, but it never works because it's not doable. It doesn't make sense.
And the kids just keep on coming.
It's like
suddenly Kang Deddy's vasectomy program makes sense.
I'm not saying that. Kang Deddy. I'm sorry, I'm not saying that yet.
I take full responsibility of everything.
Okay. It's like you built a house that can only take care of 5 people, but you keep adding the people, and then you expect the house to work. No, it's not gonna work. You need to think about how you manage the teaching resources better. And we're not doing it yet. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. We've talked about the system, right?
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the ground. You want to implement rationality, critical thinking, empathy, those 3 pillars as an education in Indonesia, so that Indonesians don't revert back to factory setting and become dogmatic. So my next question is, this is a bit imaginative, but my podcast is always about the imagination.
Awesome.
Right? It's always about the imagination. Sometimes, the conversation doesn't make sense, but hey, at least people can still learn from it because it's all in the realm of imagination. But anyways, go down to the school, and a day in a life for a teacher and a student inside a school that uses your curriculum as Minister of Education. How do you imagine that going down? What are you going to teach the students? Kita ini aja deh, dari pagi aja students wake up at what time?
Actually, we need to know what grade they're in, because it's going to be very different for
Let's go to specifics. Would you want it to be like elementary, middle, or high school? I think high school is much more better, no?
I think high school is much more you can already have so many things for them, because for the first, second, or third graders, you would just have games.
It's very streamlined.
It would just have games, and people would just learn how to make friends. And probably, I don't know, fall in love for the first time.
That's actually a very good. I actually want to talk about that for a bit.
Okay.
I noticed here in Indonesian schools, when I came here, back then. I went into an Indonesian elementary school, right? Came back here, went to a elementary school in Indonesia, and people. I was, if I'm not mistaken, I was year 4-ish. I discovered that you are discouraged from having relationships with the opposite gender inside schools. And this is different from what I've experienced overseas, right? And overseas, when we have feelings towards the opposite gender, we try to deny it. Yeah. I know we don't understand where the feeling comes from, right? And it just feels a bit icky. Why do I like her? She's not my girlfriend. Okay. They deny that, right? They feel really disgusted by it. Kids are like that. There used to be a concept called cooties. You remember that? You know that, like cooties. Yeah, just so guys could get away from girls because they have cooties. But what I'm trying to say is, in schools overseas, they encourage relationships to flourish between students. Why? Because it teaches them emotional
intelligence, management.
Emotional management, empathy. Here in Indonesia, people of the same age, elementary schools, they're discouraged from having relationships because it's against the norms that we have. Right? But by the time they get into relationships, they usually already have some pretty strong fundamentals about what they think of the opposite gender. Right? They don't consider, some guys and girls don't consider people of the opposite gender as even humans. They just think of them as, oh, they're a different species from us, so we can just think them whatever they want, right? And this creates a lot of toxicities inside the Indonesian dating scene around the ages of, like, I know there's toxic relationships everywhere in the world, but the problem here in Indonesia is because of that, because you're not allowed to manage your emotions towards the opposite gender when you're young. There are toxic relationships too overseas, but the problem happens from a different place usually. Right, so that's just what I want to talk about. That's just what I want to share with you and you guys, right?
Yeah, it's very important topic actually. I mean, Indonesian adults love to say no, to just say no to the kids, you know. To just don't, to say don't. They just like to ban things from happening, from being done.
Yes.
They don't want to manage it. They're too lazy to manage it. Probably some of them are just too incompetent to manage it. So we're passing this emotional incompetence through generations because we have adults everywhere with zero ability to manage emotion or not to manage it. It's already too advanced even to be aware of their own emotions. I mean, I was one of them. I just learned how to do it like for the past 5-6 years. But before, nobody taught me about it. Nobody taught me about self-awareness, and emotional awareness is a part of it, and obviously how to manage it. You know, and I noticed that from my nephews in they're abroad, right, in Australia. So they've been taught how to feel things and how to recognize their feelings since they were like 4 or 5 years old. And it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to fall in love. It's okay to like the opposite gender, your friend from the opposite gender. It's okay to have a crush and everything. It's okay to feel heartbreak and move on from it. We don't do it here. We don't do it around here. People's houses are filled with parents who didn't know how to do it when growing up. So when they're being parents, they don't also know how to do it with their kids. So I noticed that a lot of my friends as well who were born and raised in Indonesia, they don't have that culture at all in their houses, in their homes. When they feel upset or they feel something, they don't talk with their parents. They talk with their friends, or they talk in their diary books.
Twitter.
They post on Twitter. Yeah.
They post on Twitter on their second accounts.
That's why when these adults, they grow older and they become our leaders, they become our government, they become the policymakers, they don't do it well. Because a lot of times it's coming from their emotional problems, that they don't resolve. They don't resolve these problems. like probably they had a feeling of being invalidated when they were kids, and then they just took this feeling, you know, way until they become governors, presidents, or, you know, all these positions, and then they would just have their tantrums. But now they're not 3 anymore. Their tantrums is not throwing things, it's not throwing glasses or throwing books, you know, somewhere. It's not books flying around anymore. It's like
it's about sending kids to the barracks.
Bad cities are being built, you know, and and this, I don't know, all these things that they're doing just to get validated, just to feel some sort of self-esteem. That that's not how they should do it, right? I mean, that's
one second.
That's not
build
the way
cities.
Bad cities.
Bad cities.
Yeah, are being built.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, this unnecessary buildings or ornaments that's just there to serve a purpose of, you know, well, this feeling of self-resentment or invalidation that they brought, you know, from their childhood. So we need to fix that. Yeah. So if I'm building elementary schools, I want love to be around. I want feelings to be around. I want kids to feel okay to feel things. And I want kids to deal with it, you know. Obviously, we don't want a school where people just to be encouraged to date or, you know, or do all these unhealthy things for kids, but not that. Yeah, where obviously we want a safe space.
We want a safe space.
Yeah, where kids can feel things, where kids can
express things without having to be afraid of the fist.
And develop, you know, probably premature relationships, because that's where they need to start, right? They need to start learning.
You need to step. You need to have baby steps.
Baby steps for friendship and their mature relationship later on in life. So, yes, that's definitely something that we need to fix in our education. But then again, what I want in schools is that if we involve the online resources, we can have kids practicing math or science using these online platforms, because it's basically repetitive, right? Because it's the same method over and over throughout the year, throughout generations. It's still the same thing. Like, for example, basic math operations have been here for centuries.
Yes.
Like how to add things, how to multiply things. It will be the same forever, because it's a language that we've developed in the math system. We already develop this language. We will stick with it because it works, right? The teacher don't need to do this repetitive work. The teacher don't need to keep teaching kids how to multiply things like throughout generations. You know, it's also not healthy for them as a human being. They need more creative things to do, which is why if we involve online resources for repetitive work or, you know, technical work that kids should just practice on a platform, teachers can take care of the more, you know, advanced, sophisticated things like emotional management, self-awareness, self-concept, and the project, probably a science project, right? Building things or business projects. But that can only be done if we take out some of the burdens from the teachers. What we've been doing so far is we are adding those things without taking the existing burdens. So the teachers just get more burdens without getting more incentives at all, and getting more capacity as well. I mean, they may not have that much of a capacity to carry all those things, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why our kids, underprivileged kids, actually that's most kids, you know, unless you're going to international school with, you know, 15, 20 kids in class. Your teachers would teach you emotional, you know, management and everything.
Not only are they gonna teach you emotional stuff, like your teachers are probably educated overseas.
Exactly.
Like they'll teach you philosophy and theology if they have to.
Exactly. When you're having moral dilemma as to like how to deal with your friendship, should I betray A? should I forgive B? They would give you like Plato conversation. Like, okay, we can talk about this. Things, right? I'm not talking about these kids, obviously. I'm talking majority of Indonesian kids who don't have access to these things. They're not growing up healthily in the inside, especially, you know, because kids need this room to grow emotional maturity.
Yeah, they go to the teacher's office. They talk to the teacher, and the teacher is Mussolini.
It's just gonna say like
Mussolini.
No, you don't get to feel this.
Either says yes or no.
This is unimportant.
This is unimportant.
Yeah, that's
yes.
how they use the. We tend to. I mean, Indonesian adults tend to belittle,
Of
feelings, and when kids like, oh, they're hurt, and oh, gitu aja masa, gitu aja. Ngambek gitu aja sedih gitu. You get what I'm saying? Like,
that's terrible.
No, that's not how you should deal with feelings. People need to recognize, people need to be aware of what they feel. And again, Indonesian adult landscape is very bad in terms of emotional emotional health and ability to manage. Like, we can see it everywhere. Adults just deny their feelings. And then pretend like it's cool not to feel anything. Well, it's actually not cool at all to not feel anything.
I wonder how much sociopaths we have in Indonesia.
Exactly.
That's a question.
Exactly.
Right. It's been an interesting ride to hear you talk about the curriculum that you want to do and what sort of life that your students want to have. Let's get back to critical thinking and scientism.
Sure.
Yeah. So the thing about scientism, right, is that it feeds on dogma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Besides education, where do you think the fundamentals of dogma comes from?
I think, well, it's not I think, it's just based on the things that I read somewhere, in the books and the journals. Well, they've been saying that it's a part of our nature, that it's a part of human nature, that we have this tendency, scientific mindset, pursuing truth by examining the reality is not really in our nature, because in our natural selection, nature doesn't care how you get to the truth. Nature only cares if you survive, right? So if you think too much, if you try to find evidence too much, probably your ancestors wouldn't survive because it would take so much time for them to test if there's a crocodile in this lake, or if there's a predator somewhere in this forest. It would be easier for them to survive to just go to conclusion that there's a lion out there. Well, actually, there's not a lion.
There is no lion, so they don't eat for days.
Yeah,
so it's like kind of like a gambling,
It's a gambling in a way, but then again, the bet has been won by the non-scientific way of doing things before. But what I'm thinking is, I don't think we can live off with that, survival tool.
As knowledge, for the future. As knowledge begins to develop, then obviously we need to.
Not just that, the natural selection as well. I mean, the natural challenges that emerged after we developed this tool and we developed a life around it. We produced technologies and everything. We need it more than ever to start thinking more scientifically because the world has changed. Because we don't live in the hunter and gatherer's life anymore. We have all this system where we need to pursue evidence to reach conclusions, and that's how we end up with this court system and policy system. Getting back to that, evidence-based policy making. Why did we ask for that? Because it works better for the survival as well. Like if you're looking at countries where the government made decisions, using enough evidence or grounds, solid grounds to produce policies, they come up with good policies, including in education. It's better for you to produce education policies based on research, from the teachers and the students on field, not based on your own assumption, or your own ideals, to work with the reality. And I think that's the point. And the reality that we're living right now, it has shown again and again and again that it's better for us to think using scientific worldview to solve problems, and that have been used for decades now, and it has created tremendous amount of progress in our life. It has improved our quality of life to the level that we didn't imagine before. So I think that's the reason why we should adopt it now. But yes, it's not a part in our evolved nature before, because the natural selection back then didn't prefer this. But right now we can nurture it intentionally, right? Just like we nurture everything else, like in our culture, like how we move on from slavery, or how we move on from war, endless war. We come up with this idea where we want peace more. Yeah, although right now it's being challenged again.
No, I feel like I'm just gonna say it out loud.
Okay.
War is just part of human nature.
Yeah.
Conflict, not war.
Yeah.
Conflict.
Right. Yeah. The violent way of doing things, we're trying to move on from it.
Yes.
Right. We're developing different tools, different social tools to work out our conflicts or disagreements, so we don't just kill each other, because we saw that killing each other is so harmful for every party. It's like everyone gets involved and it gets harmed. So that's how we reach a conclusion, we need to move on from it. So what I'm thinking about, scientific mindset and scientific culture is more like, it's just like one of those things, a new cultural tool that we can adopt. And I think it's a better way of doing things. But I'm obviously not saying it's giving us absolute truth. I don't know if absolute truth exists, and I don't know if we can reach it. But what I know is the best way possible that we know now. So I keep telling people, if you come to me and you propose to me a different method, like, Kan, I think this is not how we should see things. I think this is how, and you can prove me that it's a better way, I can move on from this to that tool. It's just a cultural tool. There's nothing sacred about it. There's nothing sacred about scientific method, for sure, or skepticism and everything. No, there's nothing sacred about it. There's nothing divine about it that we need to, that it's a noble or, higher than everyone else kind of thing. It's a very mundane, practical thing, like how you use your shoes or how you use refrigerators. If you want to freeze your water into ice, you use the refrigerator. That's how I see scientific worldview. So it's absolutely, changeable, challengeable. I don't think we should think of what I'm saying or what I'm promoting as something that, rigid or, obviously it's just a tool that I see based on evidence as the best tool possible right now to get valid observation of reality, which helps us produce good decisions and that have been used in corporations, in policy making, in court systems. So what I'm asking is, why don't we implement it in our everyday life?
Okay. Final question.
Yeah.
Final question. Actually, I wanted the podcast to go for 2 hours, but I don't think our schedule could actually manage that.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things I actually wanted to talk about besides just scientism and critical thinking. It requires like a 2-hour podcast, right?
Yeah.
I feel like
it's a lot. It's heavy.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do another episode on it.
Yeah, let's go.
Next time.
My final question though for you is, you're currently promoting this way of thinking, and you're currently promoting this new, what you're promoting shakes up people's values as well, right?
Probably.
How do you imagine society is gonna be like as the output of what you're promoting? Okay. What society in the world are we gonna be somewhat similar to in terms of description? Would it be like a society like America, a society like France, Russia, China? Because like societies is a spectrum.
Yeah.
And the current Indonesia in itself is already a society, and some societies can be like Indonesia. Yeah, but I'm just asking you in terms of spectrum, right? In terms of similarities, the result of your work is going to lead to what sort of society?
Yeah. Bazar, I must say, it's very difficult actually for me to pick a country or a society to be the model for what I'm trying to build.
Yeah.
People sometimes mention countries like Singapore or Japan.
Yeah.
But it actually doesn't really fit what I'm trying to build yet, because you see, sometimes what people think of about the scientific worldview, when you're talking about scientific worldview, they're talking about secularism instead. So they're looking at countries where it's very secular, like America or Japan and Singapore. But it's actually not what I'm trying to promote, right? I'm not talking about being secular. I'm talking about...
It's also possible like the output of your country becomes like a Vatican City.
No, that's obviously
Vatican
no,
City.
that's not possible.
Or Saudi Arabia.
But my point is sometimes these countries, probably they're focusing on producing STEM people. Like making people,
I agree.
Making people a scientist or an engineer, and that's not the country that I want to build. That's not what I'm saying, right?
Okay, yeah.
Because no, what I'm saying is, of course, having people in STEM is great for the industry, for the advancement of the society and everything. Of course, I agree with that. But what I'm saying is not complete. It's not the complete version of what I'm trying to have. So I think what better represents it would be probably Australia instead.
Australia?
Yeah, Australia.
Good day, mate.
Probably Australia. Maybe it's also because the country is pretty...
chill.
The society is pretty new.
It's pretty new and chill.
Yeah, it's pretty new. I mean, that's what matters more. Because you see the culture in Japan and in America, it's a mature culture.
It's a mature culture.
Because they're a very old society.
Yeah, Japan is ancient, America is a patchwork of different cultures.
Yeah, including European, in Germany and French. There are lots of things to correct because it's an old society.
Yeah.
But Australia, on the other hand,
a new society.
It's a new society. It's a very new civilization. They can just literally do the right thing, right away, because they can already learn from the older societies.
What is so interesting about Australia, I think, is that it's a society whose fundamentals is rooted from the Anglosphere. So there's plenty of British fundamentals that comes with Australia. Plenty of continental Europe as well, because there's lots of immigrants from continental Europe, like Poland, Russia. They come to Siberia even. They come to Australia. But how did Australia become such a society that is so different from the rest of the Anglosphere and the rest, like Canada, America, UK, Ireland, and the rest of Europe, predominant white countries, right?
Yeah.
I think it's because of the proximity as well. The proximity in terms of geography and also in terms of society.
Exactly.
Whatever is happening in the Western world, Australia is the last country in the Western world that gets the impact. So they can get ready. They can brace the impact.
Yeah.
When communism spread all around Europe, and then it spread to America, to Canada, to Latin America, Australia did not embrace communism. Like, padahal tuh semua sepupunya kan, padahal semua sepupunya ada, it's affected by some communism gitu.
Yeah.
Tapi Australia, you wouldn't find any communists.
Yeah.
So the proximity is what makes Australia be like. So everybody's right there. Australia is the loner in the room. That's like away from everybody.
Geography plays a role all the time.
Yeah.
But then again, what I was trying to say, Australia is probably the closest thing right now that we have in the world. But obviously, that's also not what I'm trying to have, because what I want to have is Indonesia.
More complex, multifaceted, nuanced.
Yeah, and Indonesia still being Indonesia. We don't turn into Australians for this.
I don't mind turning to Australia. I
actually mind. I don't want to lose this touch of Indonesian absurdity.
You don't want to live like it's Bali every day.
No, not really. No, thank you. Yeah, I still want a touch of our TikTok absurdities, our kind of jokes, our kinds of chillness throughout everything. I still want all of that from Indonesia. I don't want to take that away.
You don't want to be like, each night you can just call up your friends and have barbecue, flip open a bottle of beer and just chill. And tomorrow you go home early from work at 4. I guess this is chill society, Australia.
Well, that actually sounds close to Indonesia.
There's some similarities
so
actually.
How we get there is just give it a touch of emotional education, the empathy part, and then the scientific worldview, and I think we're done.
Paling gampang sih gini sih, outputnya ya. The output that I'm imagining when we get to that sort of society is when, let's say, President Prabowo is in front of my house, and instead of coming out kucuk and salim to him, I'd be like, Mr. President, please get off my lawn. I work so hard on the damn lawn, man.
Actually, I'm already having a smaller scale model where I think I've already seen what's what I want in Zenius and Malacca. So if you come there, you'll see. That's the kind of society that I imagine we would have.
I'd love to visit Zenius and Malacca.
And I think you know Zenius people and Malacca people. Yeah.
Obviously, we're part of the same circle.
Yeah. So you know the kind of awesomeness that I'm trying to have everywhere.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, like, because like everybody here, everybody's like in Jakarta. Everybody knows everybody.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Kita
it's very small.
Yeah. It's a very small thing. Like in America, political influencers yang nongkrongnya sama political influencers aja. Yeah. Kita nongkrongnya sama gamer.
Yeah.
I'm a literally like random ass people.
Yeah.
Nongkrongnya sama random ass people aja gitu. Oh yeah. By the way, what's this book? By the way, like you put it right here, but like I should have like put it. Okay, give me
I wrote. Yeah, because this is my first book. I'm writing it with my friend, my best friend, Abby. It's called Makanya Mikir. There's a message from which we have.
Yeah.
Ahok and Anies, Pak Anies.
I love
Pak
them.
Ahok and Mbak Nana.
I voted for this guy.
Yeah, I wrote a message in this book, in this edition. So this is basically a book consists of very basic thinking tools, thinking frameworks.
Look at these are the authors.
Well, that I hope would help people improve their quality of life by having, better relationships with others, better decision making in everyday life. I think that's what we're trying to do. It's very basic, very beginner kind of thing. So I think it's for everyone. I would love people to introduce it to kids as well. I mean, to the teenagers in the high school probably. So please, teachers, if you're watching this, probably you can buy it for your students or have it in the library of your school.
Yep. People say, some people accuse Miss Cania here of scientism, right? I disagree. This is an evidence of heuristic thinking. I read the book, and the book contains a lot of your trial and errors.
Yeah.
I feel. Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
We make errors in life. I think the thinking tools help us to navigate those errors. So I'm not saying we're gonna be flawless, we're gonna be not making mistakes. We're gonna make mistakes all the time in life, but we're trying to navigate it better from time to time.
I feel like this book is an excellent piece of sharing experience.
Thank you very much, Nazir. Thank you, guys.
I haven't finished the book, actually.
Yeah.
I think chapter. Last time I read was like a month ago.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, but I
take it slowly.
I do notice, like, when I read this, I'm like, wow, you guys went through a lot.
We did, for sure.
Yeah,
Linktree / Makanya Mikir.
By the way, I'll put the whatchamacallit? I put the link on the description. Is that okay?
Yeah, and put the product, please. YouTube,
of
you can also add product. Now.
Yeah, don't forget to buy her book, right?
Thank you.
Best in Town.
Thank you, guys.
Endorsed by some of the biggest names here in Indonesia, from journalists, artists to politicians. Well,
that's it then.
I'd love to talk for another hour with you.
Oh.
Especially the nature of conflict. I feel like that's a very awesome topic of discussion. But alas, we have our own schedules. Thank you.
Thank you so much
for joining me today here.
Thank you so much.
Cania. It's so weird. Like it rolls from the tongue really hard.
Call me the name. Call me by the name. Just call me by the name. Cania. It's fine, Bazir. But Kak Chan is also fine.
Okay, Kak Chan. Thank you for coming, Kak Chan. Thanks everybody for watching this episode of the Baseless Indonesian Talks, and I'll see you in the next episode and possibly our second episode together. Bye bye.
Subscribe to the Based Indonesian Show. Dijamin halal